Welcome to Scorched Earth and a general mid-month reading for the sign of Libra, Sun, Moon or Ascendant for the last 2 weeks of November. I hope you're well. We're using the Pagan Otherworlds tarot for you today. Here it is. So if you haven't seen these readings before, I structure them slightly differently to the way that I do the main monthly readings, in so much as we are looking for the lesson. It's an exercise in perspective, if you will. I think that there's wisdom, or indeed a lesson, contained within every experience and interaction that we have, if we are open to seeing it, and too often we are not, because we get bogged down with the day-to-day minutiae of everyday life. So what I intend to do here is pull 3 cards for your current energy, and then pull 3 cards and see why you are in that energy in the first place. Sometimes it's trying to teach you something about yourself. Sometimes it's trying to clear the way in front of you. Well, it's actually almost always telling you something about yourself, but we won't really know until the cards hit the table. And then I'll close out with 3 cards of advice, just to see if we can't find a way to help you navigate through this a little more easily. You can pull back and look at what you're supposed to be learning here. It makes the whole process much easier. So let's get 3 cards for Libra, please. What's going on with Libra right now? Interesting. Okay, so we've had 3 cards come out all together, which is interesting because I only really wanted 1. We've got the 3 of Cups, the 2 of Cups in the reverse, and then the 2 of Wands in the upright. So if we start with the 2 of Wands, it's a crossroads energy. It talks about needing to make a decision about something, head off in some particular direction, right? When you come to a crossroads, you're standing there and you can go left or you can go right. Before you make that decision, if you don't know where you're going, and often we don't, we walk through the consequences of going one way over another. And from there, from that internal space of contemplation, we fix on a decision, and then we move to the 3. And that's when we start actually, moving in any, down the path that we have picked for ourselves. But the interesting thing here is that we have the 3 and the 2 of Cups in the reverse. Now, the 2 of Cups talks about relationships. It doesn't have to be romantic relationships, although it can be. It can be business partnerships. It can be friendships. It can be any kind of relationship where there is, shared goals, shared visions, shared, intimacy, perhaps. But there's an alignment there, It's come out in the reverse, which talks about kind of peeling away from other people. Specifically, it talks to relationship breakdown. But it's interesting that the 3 of Cups has come out here as well, because the one feeling that I did have when all the 3 of those cards came out together was a feeling of being let down in some way. Now, the 3 of Cups talks to me about emotional support networks, those that we rely on and those that we, actually engage with for the benefit of other people. Hopefully, if you've got a decent support network around you, then it's interdependent, not codependent, but interdependent. You rely on each other at times when you need it. But to see these all breaking down like that, it feels like, I want to pull another couple of cards, but it does feel like you're kind of being pushed towards making a decision about your life in some sort of way. Yeah, got the 9 of Wands. 9 of Wands, and we've got the Wheel of Fortune. Yeah, like there's a real feeling of everything being up in the air here, Libra. And specifically because relationships aren't what you thought they were. It's like you can't rely on them in the way that you thought you had. Now, some of those relationships will just be as a natural corollary of this, just breaking down. But there's more a sense of contemplation here. Well, Libra, you tend to think before you act, for sure. And this is definitely what I'm seeing reflected in the cards here. This 9 of Wands has come out in the reverse, which is interesting because in the upright it can talk about boundaries, and boundaries are super important, something that comes up fairly frequently actually, particularly with Libra. But it can also talk about resilience. It can talk about resolve, and it appearing in the 9 in its reverse state would suggest that there's just quite a lot of confusion here not really knowing which is the best way to go forward, what is worth holding on to here with the Four of Pentacles, and what needs to be released. But nevertheless being pushed towards some sort of decision that needs to be made, and probably needs to be made fairly soon. Now we've got this Wheel of Fortune here, and I say about this card that it's often, it does indicate your fortune's improving at some point, or potentially, you know, on the downward swing. But when you really dig into this card, it's numbered a 10, and 10s indicate completion, even though it is not the end of the major arcana. You know, just 10s, numerologically speaking, indicate completion. But it sort of forms a bit of a checkpoint for me, in so much as it's something that you've learned. It's something that's on your karmic syllabus that was important for your soul to learn. And the Wheel of Fortune here indicates that you have learned it. Now, often the universe responds to that by, you know, chucking some more good stuff your way, you know, the stuff that you are now ready for, or the stuff that you know, have been expressing gratitude for, that you have right now. You know, you want more of it in the future. But there's more of a spinning kind of feel to this. It's almost like the lesson is there, and it's kind of staring you in the face, but at this point it doesn't feel like you're quite yet ready to embrace it with open arms. There's just a little bit too much up in the air. There's a little bit too much confusion, and the path forward does not seem clear. More than that, it doesn't feel to me like you have a lot of energy for it. It feels like you've been kicked a little bit. I don't usually pull clarifiers for mid-month readings, but I'm going to break my rule on this occasion. I've got the Star in reverse, and whatever this was, and the Five of Wands in reverse. Yeah. Interesting, the number of reversals that are going on here. The Star can talk about healing, but it does talk about connection for me. That is a really strong meaning for this card, because, you know, when you say you followed your guiding star, what you mean is you looked up into the sky and you felt this an incredible sense of connection with this celestial body, that you trusted it to take you where you needed to go. It's connection there, you know, and it's turned up in the reverse for you. But we also have the Five of Wands and the Six of Swords at the bottom of the deck. Now the Five of Wands is also in reverse. In its upright, it talks about conflict. It talks about, you know, sometimes petty squabbles, and sometimes something a little bit more than that. It can talk about internal conflict too. When it turns up in the reverse, what you're doing is essentially stabilizing what is an inherently unstable energy. And we've got this Six of Swords here. There's a knowledge that it's time for you to move on. Like, I wonder, Libra, if you have outgrown some people, you know, and rather than sort of pitching a fit about the way that you've been let down, all I feel is this sense of disappointment about the loss of connection, and the loss of connection that you thought you had. But with this Five of Wands in reverse, we could either see it as you not making a fuss with other people about it, you know, like I said, you're not pitching a fit, rather you're trying to keep yourself stable in amongst it. Or, you know, what's done is done, and now you're in a process of trying to rebalance yourself while you work out your next movement forwards. Tell me about this Wheel of Fortune, please. Got the Knight of Cups. Wheel of Fortune. Yeah. Got the Knight of Cups and the Four of Cups. We've got there the act of somebody giving their cup, you know, sometimes these are messengers and whatnot, but, you know, the act of emotionally giving your cup to someone else is that interdependence that I was talking about before. But it seems like it's not being received, right? Now, either this is you not receiving it as other people have given it to you, or other people have not received it in the way that you were giving it to them. Either way, there is a mismatch here. Somebody trying to give and somebody refusing to receive. We can see it as being taken for granted often. But it is the act of rejection, whether it is being rejected or doing the rejecting. Either way, with this Ace of Pentacles and the Three of Wands behind it there, It suggests that it's time for you to find new pastures, emotionally speaking, certainly perhaps in a relationship sense, in whatever sense that applies. Once you've taken the time to build up your reserves of energy again, most Libras are fairly conflict avoidant, and I know some very shadowy Libras who are actually completely the reverse and do seem to seek out deliberately the conflict, but that's to try and stabilize their sense of self, right? I am the most important person in the room, I know the most about everything in the room. It's very low vibration stuff, and I don't feel like that's what's going on here for you. More it's that tremendous sense that the relationships that you had some level of investment in just have not returned. Perhaps there's been some sort of event where people have shown their true colours, and they've shown exactly how much they will or won't do for you when you've needed it. That's very difficult energy. But honestly, what I feel the disappointment over here, but I feel that the slight mistrust moving forwards. Maybe some of you are questioning your own judgment on situations. Why is Libra in this energy right now, please? I'll just leave it there. Whatever that was. Oh, it's 2 cards. What do we have here? The Tower and the 6 of Swords. Again, we've got another 2. We've got the 6 of Cups and the 9 of Swords. Let's get one more, please. The Libra. Thank you. 10 of Cups. We've got the Justice card at the bottom of the deck. That's the Libra card in the Major Arcana. And we have the King of Swords behind it, right? So both air sign energy there. And the King and the Queen of Swords, though the King of Swords is Aquarius energy, it does form like a lower echo for me of the Justice card in the same way that the Queen of Swords does too. That it could be dealing with an Aquarius, but it's talking about decision making specifically. Justice is often about doing what is right. Can sometimes be about karma and karmic consequences of things, which is neutral. Karma is not punishment, it is merely the neutral consequences of the actions that you have taken. And I see perhaps with the way this King of Swords and Justice cards are facing away from each other, that your sense of being able to trust yourself to make the good decisions has somewhat had a wobble. But asking why it is that you're here in this energy at the moment, we have the Tower and we have the 6 of Swords. It's an interesting combination because that Tower energy, it's about knocking things down to the ground. We literally see this woman in mid-flight here falling off the top of the tower. That Tower energy blows stuff up, and it blows things up that are no longer serving you, those things that were built on faulty foundations, right? When people talk about having a Tower moment, it's the shit hitting the fan in some sort of way, and that can be external to you. That can be losing your job, that can be all manner of those kind of things. But what it can also be is those very internal Tower moments where you realize that you made, you invested too much in something, or, you trusted people blindly when actually there was nothing about their behavior that really warranted that level of trust from you. And sometimes, Libra, you've done literally nothing wrong and could have done nothing any differently, and the Tower still hits anyway. But with the 6 of Swords here, it says that it's time to move away from whatever this is. Now, maybe this is a long-running thing with you, actually, and we certainly see indication later on that might be the case. if you have been, there is a relationship in your life somewhere, or perhaps multiple relationships, that have felt like the longest, slowest, drawn out tower moment of your life, then maybe the message here is not for you to watch until that tower has absolutely bitten the dust, but know when it is time to move. The Six of Swords talks about moving from these very choppy waters, as depicted here, right there, moving into smoother, calmer waters, those which you prefer for yourself anyway. Libra is always about the pursuit of balance, but it feels like you are slightly unbalanced at this time by whatever is going on, whatever has been going on. But have you been engaging with this tower? Have you been trying to push things, push bits of mortar back into it to try and keep it up? Because the tower's falling no matter what, Libra. And sometimes the wisest thing to do, and the best thing that you can do for yourself, is resolve not to be there at the point where the bodies start hitting the ground. Resolve not to be there at the point where, the masonry starts fucking clobbering people at the bottom of the structure. Get in the fucking boat and go. Whether it is physically or emotionally, intellectually, these are all one and the same, and generally we only tend to deal with one part of that. We go, right, well, I'm walking away from this, and then we sit in a state of emotional turmoil about it, potentially for years afterwards. So it's like, Libra, if you're being given a sign, accept it for what it is and trust yourself that it's time to move on. The two cards that came out there next were the Six of Cups and the Nine of Swords. And when I said there was an indication that this had been going on for quite a long time, well, there it is with the Six of Cups. This is a card of the past. It can be children, it can be childhood, it can even be past lives, actually. But it is, at the root of it, just the past. And sometimes the rose-tinted glasses that we put on when we think about the past, the ways in which we allow ourselves to continue to be connected to situations and relationships that do not serve us, simply because they have always been there, right? And there's a reluctance to turn our backs on those. But with this Nine of Swords here, whatever history there might be in this situation, all it brings you now is Nine of Swords energy. It's that mental turmoil, mental anguish. This swan at the bottom of the card here has a golden chain around its neck. It's very pretty, but it's still chained up. This isn't for you, Libra. We have the Ten of Cups to finish on this particular bit, which is interesting because it's somewhat at odds with the rest of the card here, the rest of the cards that are on the table. But again, I'm seeing a lot of structures here in these cards. There's a house on the Six of Cups and there's a house on the Ten of Cups here. Tell me about this Ten of Cups, please. And we've got the Nine of Wands again with the Nine of Pentacles. We've got the Six of Pentacles at the bottom against of the deck there, bringing that equilibrium, bringing that balance, right? Not allowing people to drip feed stuff to you, because I do feel like there's a breadcrumbing aspect to this here. It's like you're having to clamour for somebody's attention or for somebody's time, somebody's care, somebody's effort, and you frankly are worth more than this, Libra. We've got this Nine of Pentacles and Nine of Wands here, both cards that deal with the individual, right? You've got three nines. Whatever the situation is right now, it's not about the situation, it's about you and your responses to it. How do you incorporate all of this so that you can learn the really valuable lesson that is being presented to you? And, more so, like, where are you refusing to look at it? Because it could be that this thing is staring you right in the face, but it takes a great deal of courage sometimes to turn around and look at these things, particularly when you've got a shiny gold collar around your neck, It feels to me that whatever this situation is, it's portrayed one way, but in reality it exists in another, and the ways that it actually exists are a drain on you. There are literally a drain on your resources, perhaps financially, but certainly energetically. And it's time to make really strong decisions. And the strong decision, honestly, seems to me, like, do you continue with whatever situation like this is portrayed to be, but actually isn't? Do you continue with that at the expense of yourself, or do you start putting yourself first? Because erecting boundaries, I've said many, many times, the only people who will kick off about you erecting boundaries are the people who benefited from you having none. And I think that the scales have fallen from your eyes somewhat here, Libra, and you have seen how many people have benefited from you not having the boundaries in the right place. So now this is all about working on you and moving yourself to a safe distance away from the tower and everything that the tower represents. But more than that, taking that on board as a way that we deal with life then moving forwards. This isn't, like I said, just about this situation, but it's about every iteration of this decision, this situation that you may come across for the rest of your life. Like, the beautiful thing about the Wheel of Fortune for me is that it does act like a save point, right? So even if you do, even if things go downhill for a while, even if things get difficult, you're never ever going to go back to where you were before this point. Right? You come back to this point here and the knowledge that you've gained, the wisdom that you've got, and you move from here. And it's pointing everything back to you. Everything needs to come back to you. And the trust in your own decision making. I have some card advice for Libra, please. We have the Page of Cups. We have the Seven of Cups. And we have the Fool. Yeah. Now we've got the King of Wands at the bottom of the deck. Time to take action, right? It's about what you decide to do. Like, how are you going to live your life, Libra? Because what I'm seeing here is that it's very unsatisfactory, the way that you've been living it. Fuzz. And it's time to start changing direction on things. We've got the Page of Cups with his back to the Seven of Cups here. Now, do you remember I said right at the beginning that I felt like this confusion? Well, here it is. Right? We've got confusion, but we also have illusion. Are you confused because things are not being, shown properly? Have you been confused because things haven't been revealed in their entirety to you? Well, I feel like that's starting to shift because obviously something has been revealed to you. But we've got confusion here. Now, I think that the confusion is coming from, if I'm honest, from your inability to be able to see that some people are just dicks, right? And it doesn't matter how nice you are to them. It doesn't matter how much history that you have with them. People will often be out for themselves. And you have, in this situation, appear to have been collateral damage. Now, the confusion completely, it feels to me, like slides away if you look at it from a different perspective. Remove the history, remove the emotional investment that you have in it, and start seeing this for what it is. If these people around you, if you met them now, right, swept the history away, if you met them now, would you want to be part of their life? Because I think the answer is a resounding no. To it then, holding on to the past for the sake of it is actually holding you back. It's actually damaging you. It's time to turn your back on that and start considering moving in a new emotional direction. And we've got the Fool there, right? It's the start of a new cycle, certainly. But, the message of the Fool is often like, you need to start walking. It doesn't matter if you don't know where you're going. You just need to start walking now. The Fool's blind trust in the universe is what will keep him safe. He's always depicted at the end of, the edge of a precipice there. But the Fool lives to continue his journey because this is right at the start. He's got the whole major arcana to walk through. It's not like he ever falls off this cliff and then just, perishes. Whatever you are feeling drawn to do, part of you is feeling drawn to do, particularly after you consider this situation in the light of, everything that I've just said before. suddenly everything will make a lot more sense, and you will be able to move a lot more freely than you currently find yourself being able to do. But you know, ultimately trusting yourself is the thing that is being asked of you right here. No matter how much this whole situation has wobbled you, one foot in front of the other, Libra. Right, I'm going to leave it there. I really hope that this was helpful. Know that I love you all very, very much, and I will see you soon.